My name is Kale. I am the Alpha King of the Northern Ridge Pack. In the north, my name carries weight. Other alphas lower their eyes when I pass. My warriors obey without question. My laws are strict, and my punishments are final. Strength keeps us alive. Weakness destroys us. That belief built my rule. It shaped every decision I have ever made. Fear is better than love, Darius once told me. Darius is my beta. He has stood beside me since we were boys. He understands my thoughts before I speak them. Fear keeps the pack united, he repeated during a council meeting as winter tightened around us. The elders sat around the long wooden table, their faces pale with worry. Food was running low. Snow covered the forest, and the hunters had returned with little. We must reduce rations again, Elder Rowan said quietly. Murmurs filled the room. If we reduce rations, the lower ranks will complain, another elder warned. Darius crossed his arms. Then we remove the burden. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what he meant. Omegas. Especially orphaned omegas. They were at the bottom. No family. No protectors. No real power. In hard winters, they were the first to be blamed. I stood slowly. If someone cannot contribute, I said calmly, they consume more than they give. No one argued. They never do. Later that day, shouting rose from the courtyard. I stepped onto the stone balcony as snow fell in thin, sharp flakes. A crowd had gathered below. What happened? I asked. Darius appeared beside me. They caught her near the storage house. Her? The Omega orphan. Ilara. I didn't recognize the name. We walked down together. The crowd parted instantly when they saw me. In the center stood a thin girl in a faded gray cloak. Snow rested in her dark hair. She looked small. Fragile. She was inside the storage house, one hunter said angrily. Near the dried meat. I didn't take anything, she said softly. Her voice was quiet, but steady. You expect us to believe that, another snapped. Darius stepped forward. Why were you there? I was cleaning. A few warriors laughed. Cleaning? Since when does an Omega clean the Alpha's food supply? Her hands trembled, but she kept her chin raised. I was told to. By who? Darius pressed. She hesitated. That pause was enough. Liar, someone muttered. I stepped closer and studied her. Her cheeks were hollow. Her lips were cracked. She was hungry. Anyone could see that. Did you steal? I asked. The courtyard went silent. She lifted her eyes to mine. They were not angry. Not defiant. Just tired. No. One word. Simple. But honesty does not prove innocence. If she was near the food, she intended to steal, Darius said firmly. Intent is enough. The crowd agreed. If you want food, I said coldly, you earn it. Double her work duties. A warrior grabbed her arm. She stumbled but did not resist. As they dragged her away, someone muttered, Omegas are always trouble. Darius gave me a nod. You handled that well. It was simple, I replied. Yet something lingered. Her eyes stayed with me. Not angry. Not pleading. Just exhausted. Over the next few days, I kept hearing her name. Ilara fainted in the kitchens. Ilara broke a water bucket. Ilara is too slow. Always Ilara. Always blamed. She's weak, Darius said during sword training. Weakness spreads. I blocked his strike. Then it won't spread. He smirked. Exactly. That night, I couldn't sleep. The wind struck the castle walls, and snow piled high against the gates. I stepped onto my balcony. Below, near the kitchens, I saw movement. A small figure struggled through the snow with a bucket. It was her. She slipped. The bucket fell. Water spilled onto the frozen ground. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She knelt and tried to scoop the water back with her bare hands. It was useless. I watched longer than I should have. Then I went inside. It wasn't my concern. A king cannot care about every weakness. 3 days later, tension broke. The hunters returned with barely enough meat to feed half the warriors. Arguments started immediately. Then I heard shouting again. She stole. I walked into the courtyard. Ilara stood in the center once more. Snow fell heavily. The sky was dark. She was near the smoked racks, a warrior accused. I was passing through, she said quietly. Her voice was weaker now. Search her, someone yelled. They searched her. Nothing. But 2 strips of meat were missing. That was enough. She's always near the food, a hunter growled. She's starving, another muttered. Her shoulders shook in the cold, but she stayed upright. Darius leaned toward me. They need an example. The crowd waited. I looked at her. She looked thinner than before. Paler. Colder. Did you steal? I asked again. Her eyes met mine. I'm hungry, she admitted softly. But I didn't steal. A whisper moved through the crowd. Admitting hunger was shameful. You're always hungry, someone mocked. She said nothing. The wind howled louder. Snow fell harder. Darius leaned closer. Send her outside the gates. Just for the night. Cold teaches discipline. I hesitated for half a second. Then I chose strength. Outside the gates, I ordered. Until morning. Gasps mixed with approval. 2 warriors grabbed her arms. She stumbled. Please, she whispered. It wasn't loud. But I heard it. Just one word. The gates opened. The storm swallowed her small figure as she was pushed beyond the walls. The gates shut with a heavy echo. Darius exhaled slowly. The pack will respect you for this. I nodded. Order had been restored. That night, I stood alone on the balcony again. The storm was worse. Beyond the gates, there was nothing but white. I couldn't see her. But I knew she was there. Alone. In the cold. A strange feeling twisted in my chest. I pushed it away. She was weak. Weakness is not my problem. I went back inside and lay in bed. But when I closed my eyes, I saw hers again. Not angry. Not accusing. Just tired. And for the first time in years, I did not sleep easily. The storm began before sunset. By nightfall, it was violent. Snow slammed against the castle walls like fists. The wind howled through every crack in the stone. Torches flickered in the corridors, casting restless shadows that made the halls feel smaller than they were. Winter had turned cruel. And we were not ready for it. I stood at the head of the council table again, watching the elders argue over numbers that no longer mattered. "We have enough food for 5 days," Elder Rowan said, his voice shaking. "Maybe 6 if we cut rations." "Cut again," one elder snapped. "The lower ranks are already restless." "They should be grateful they are fed at all," Darius replied sharply. The room grew louder. "Fear does that to people. It strips away dignity first." I stayed silent, listening. "We must make an example," Darius said finally, looking directly at me. The room quieted. "An example of what?" Rowan asked carefully. "Of consequences," Darius answered. "The pack is whispering. They think hunger gives them excuses." I knew what he meant before he said it. "Ilara," he continued. "The Omega." A few elders shifted uncomfortably. "She was already punished," Rowan said. "She was sent outside once." "And yet food is still missing," Darius replied. "Coincidence?" I didn't speak. The wind struck the windows hard, making the glass tremble. "We cannot appear weak," Darius pressed. "If we hesitate now, others will test us." He was not wrong. Fear keeps order. Order keeps us alive. But something about her face lingered in my mind again. Pale. Exhausted. Too quiet. "What are you suggesting?" I asked. "Send her out again. During the storm. Let the pack see what happens to thieves." A few elders looked uneasy. "That could kill her," Rowan said. Darius didn't blink. "Then it sends an even stronger message." The room went silent. Everyone looked at me. I felt the weight of their expectation. Their fear. Their trust in my cruelty. I hesitated. Just for a moment. Then I nodded once. "Do it." The meeting ended. They dragged her into the courtyard as the storm worsened. The snow reached our ankles now. The wind burned against exposed skin. Torches barely stayed lit. I stepped outside, my cloak whipping around me. A crowd had gathered again. Hunger makes people desperate. Desperation makes them cruel. Ilara stood in the center, shaking from the cold. Her gray cloak was soaked through. Snow clung to her hair and lashes. "I didn't steal," she whispered. Her voice was barely audible over the wind. "Then why are you always near the food?" a hunter shouted. "I'm hungry," she admitted softly. Laughter spread through the crowd. "Then work harder," someone mocked. "I do," she said, but it sounded more like a breath than a defense. Darius stepped forward. "The Alpha has made his decision." All eyes turned to me. I did not move. "Ilara," Darius said loudly, "you are accused again of theft. Until this storm passes, you will remain outside the gates." A murmur of approval rose. She looked at me then. Not the crowd. Not Darius. Me. "I didn't steal," she repeated. I said nothing. Her lips trembled, but she swallowed whatever else she wanted to say. "Please," she added quietly. "Not for food. Not for mercy from the crowd. Just. Please." The word cut through the storm more than any shout. For a second, my chest tightened. But I hardened myself. "Open the gates," I ordered. The heavy doors creaked apart. Wind rushed inside like a living thing. 2 warriors grabbed her arms. She didn't fight. She didn't scream. She just looked at me one last time as they pushed her into the white darkness. The gates slammed shut. The sound echoed. Darius exhaled slowly beside me. The pack needed that. I nodded. Yes. They did. Hours passed. The storm did not weaken. Inside my chambers, the fire burned strong, but the heat felt distant. I lay on my bed staring at the ceiling. Sleep refused to come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her standing in the snow. I didn't steal. The words replayed in my mind. Why does it matter? I asked myself. She is an omega. A burden. Weakness is not my problem. The wind howled louder. Something felt wrong. Not political. Not strategic. Personal. I sat up. This is foolish, I thought. But my body was already moving. I grabbed my cloak and stepped into the hallway. The guards looked surprised. Alpha? Open the gates, I ordered. They hesitated. Now. The doors opened slowly against the storm's pressure. Cold air slammed into me. The snow was blinding. The world beyond the gates was nothing but white chaos. I stepped forward alone. Each step was heavy. The wind stole my breath. Ilara. I called, but my voice vanished into the storm. I scanned the ground. Then I saw her. A small shape half buried in snow near the outer wall. My chest tightened. I rushed forward and dropped to my knees beside her. Her body was curled tightly, as if she had tried to protect herself from the cold. Snow covered her hair and shoulders. Her skin looked pale, too pale. Ilara, I said, shaking her gently. No response. For a second, fear, real fear, stabbed through me. I pressed my hand against her neck. There. A faint pulse. Weak. Too weak. Her breathing was shallow, almost gone. Something cracked inside me then. Not pride. Not authority. Something deeper. I had seen warriors bleed out in battle without feeling this. But this felt wrong. My fault. For the first time in my life, I knelt not as a king, but as a man. Ilara, I whispered, brushing snow from her face. Stay with me. Her eyelids fluttered slightly. I didn't steal, she breathed, barely audible. I swallowed hard. I know, I said. And for the first time. I meant it. I slid my arms beneath her frozen body and lifted her carefully. She felt weightless. Too light. The storm fought against me as I carried her toward the gates. The guards stared in shock. Alpha. Move, I growled. They scrambled aside. Gasps echoed through the courtyard as I walked in, snow clinging to both of us. Warriors stopped mid-step. Elders stared. Darius froze. What are you doing? He demanded. I didn't answer. I carried her past him. Past everyone. Into the castle. For the first time since I became Alpha. I ignored their fear. I ignored their judgment. I ignored the rule that kings do not kneel for omegas. Because tonight, I already had. I carried her through the courtyard while the storm still raged outside. No one moved. No one spoke. The snow melted against her frozen skin as I stepped into the warmth of the castle. Water dripped onto the stone floor behind me. Every pair of eyes followed me. An Alpha King does not kneel. An Alpha King does not carry an Omega in his arms. But I did. Move, I ordered when a few warriors stood frozen in my path. They stepped aside quickly. I didn't look at Darius. I could feel his stare burning into my back. Mira! I shouted as I reached the healer's chambers. Now. The door opened almost instantly. Myra's eyes widened when she saw who I was holding. Lay her here, she said quickly, clearing a space on the bed. I placed Alara down carefully. She didn't stir. Her skin was pale. Her lips had turned slightly blue. She's freezing, Mira muttered, already pulling blankets around her. How long was she outside? I didn't answer. Mira looked at me sharply. How long, Alpha? Too long, I said quietly. She began rubbing warmth back into Alara's hands while mixing herbs near the fire. If she survives the night, she will be lucky. Lucky. The word hit harder than it should have. Footsteps echoed behind me. I didn't turn around. You're risking everything, Darius said. His voice was calm, but anger sat beneath it. She would have died, I replied. She is an Omega, he snapped. And a suspected thief. She had no food on her. That doesn't mean she didn't take it before. I finally turned to face him. She said she didn't steal. Darius stared at me as if I had spoken madness. Since when do you take an Omega's word over your betas? The room felt smaller suddenly. I take the truth over assumption, I said. His jaw tightened. The pack is talking. Let them. You knelt for her, he continued. In the snow. In front of everyone. I didn't deny it. You carried her like she mattered, he pressed. She does matter, I said before I could stop myself. Silence fell between us. Darius's expression shifted, not confusion, not shock, but something colder. You're risking your authority for a stray, he asked quietly. Stray. That word stirred something sharp inside me. She is part of this pack, I said. Barely, he replied. Mira stepped between us. If you're done arguing, leave. She needs quiet. Darius looked at me one last time. This will weaken you, he said. And when a king looks weak, others rise. He walked out without waiting for my response. The door shut behind him. The room grew still. I remained standing beside the bed. Mira worked silently, placing warm cloths against Alara's skin. You should go, she said softly after a while. Let me do my job. I'll stay. She looked at me, surprised, but said nothing. Hours passed. The storm outside slowly quieted, but inside my mind, noise grew louder. Why did I bring her back? Guilt? Responsibility? Or something else? I had sent warriors to their deaths without losing sleep. I had punished members of my pack without hesitation. So why did her stillness frighten me? Mira finally sat back in her chair. Her fever is rising, she said. That may be good. It means her body is fighting. I moved closer to the bed. Alara's face looked younger without the snow and fear. Just a girl. Too young to carry that much exhaustion in her eyes. Her breathing was uneven. Then she spoke. So softly I almost missed it. Please. I leaned closer. I don't want to die alone again. The words were broken by fever, barely formed. But they hit me like a blade. Alone again. Again. The room disappeared for a moment. I was not standing beside her bed anymore. I was a boy again. Small. Helpless. Watching my mother fade away in this same castle. I remembered her hand growing colder in mine. I remembered her whispering, "Stay strong." And I remembered standing beside her body afterward, surrounded by warriors who did not know what to say. Alone. Even as the future alpha. The memory tightened around my throat. I swallowed hard and looked back at Alara. Her hand twitched weakly against the blanket. Without thinking, I reached out and held it. Her skin was still cold. "I'm here," I said quietly. The words felt strange in my mouth. I had never said that to anyone before. Not like that. Not without command behind it. Mira watched me carefully but said nothing. I sat there through the night. Every time her breathing slowed, my chest tightened. Every time she shifted, I leaned closer. I kept asking myself the same question. Am I doing this because I was wrong? Because I sent her into that storm? Or because I cannot stand the thought of her dying alone? If this is guilt, it is stronger than any guilt I have ever felt. If this is weakness, it feels different. It feels human. Near dawn, footsteps approached outside the healer's room. Whispers. I could hear them through the door. The Alpha stayed all night. He held her hand. This is not how a king behaves. Their voices were not fearful. They were uncertain. Uncertainty is more dangerous than fear. Mira finally stood. Her fever is steady. She may survive. May. I released her hand slowly. The door opened without knocking. Elder Rowan stepped inside, followed by 2 warriors. His expression was careful. "Alpha," he said. "The pack is unsettled." "Unsettled how?" I asked. "They question the punishment. They question your choice." My jaw tightened. My choice saved a life. "And cost authority," Rowan replied gently. Behind him, I saw Darius watching. Not angry. Not shouting. Waiting. Watching. He did not speak. He did not need to. The message was clear. The moment I knelt, something shifted. Not just inside me. Inside the pack. And now? They were watching to see what kind of king I would become. I looked back at Alara. Her breathing was still uneven, but steady. She was alive. I stood slowly. "If my authority depends on letting someone freeze to death," I said quietly, "then it was never strength." Rowan said nothing. Darius's eyes hardened. The power shift had begun. And for the first time since I claimed the Alpha title, I did not know if I feared losing it, or if I was finally becoming worthy of it. Ilara woke just after dawn. I was standing near the window when I heard her breathing change. It was slower, steadier. Alive. Mira noticed it too. "Ilara," she said softly. Ilara's eyes opened halfway. They were unfocused at first. Then they sharpened. She looked around the healer's room, at the fire, the blankets, the walls. Then her gaze found me. Her body stiffened. Not relief. Not gratitude. Fear. She tried to sit up too fast and winced. "You're safe," Mira said gently. "Lie back down." Ilara swallowed and lowered herself carefully. She didn't look at me again. "I can work," she said quickly, her voice rough. "I understand the punishment." "There is no punishment," I replied. The words felt strange coming from me. She went still. "I didn't steal," she whispered, staring at her hands. "I know," I said. Her head lifted slightly. Not fully. Just enough to show surprise. But she still didn't trust it. Kindness, to her, felt like a trap. You need rest, Mira said firmly. Both of you. I stepped back. I'll send food. Ilara's shoulders tensed again. Not because she was grateful. Because she didn't understand. I left the room before I could make it worse. The courtyard felt different that morning. Quieter. But not calm. Whispers followed me as I crossed the training grounds. He stayed with her all night. He held her hand. He knelt. That word moved through the pack like a crack in stone. Knelt. An alpha king does not kneel. Near the armory, I slowed when I heard two warriors speaking. He's changed, one muttered. He's soft, the other replied. Darius said this would happen. I kept walking, pretending I hadn't heard. But I had. Later, passing the council chamber, I heard Darius's voice through the half-open door. Leadership cannot be ruled by emotion, he was saying. Murmurs followed. If the Alpha chooses an Omega over discipline, Darius continued, we all pay the price. I stopped just out of sight. He risks survival, someone said. He risks authority, Darius corrected calmly. My jaw tightened. Corrupted. That was the word he used later when we crossed paths in the corridor. You're letting her cloud your judgment, he said evenly. I'm letting truth guide it, I replied. Truth, he echoed. Or guilt. I stepped closer. Be careful. He didn't move. The pack is watching you. And they are questioning. Let them, I said. He held my gaze for a long moment, then smiled slightly. Not friendly. Strategic. As you wish, Alpha. He walked away, leaving something heavy behind him. That evening, I went alone to the storage house. If Ilara didn't steal, someone did. Food had been disappearing for weeks. Small amounts at first. Then more. Always blamed on the weakest. Inside the storage room, the air smelled of dried meat and grain. I examined the racks carefully. Nothing obvious. No broken locks. Which meant whoever was stealing had access. Trusted access. Only a few wolves held keys to inventory and supply logs. Darius. The quartermaster. And myself. I moved toward the back shelves and noticed something caught on a nail. A scrap of fabric. Dark blue. Warrior blue. Ilara wore gray. I pulled it free and turned it in my hand. The material was thick. High quality. Not something an Omega would own. This was never about hunger. It was about control. Later that night, I unlocked the chest holding the inventory records. The pages were neat. Precise. Food counts carefully listed. Except certain weeks didn't match the hunter reports. Meat recorded as stored but never distributed. Small numbers at first. Then larger. Missing. Hidden between lines. And each entry carried a signature. I stared at it. Clean handwriting. Confident. Signed by the acting overseer of supplies. Darius. I flipped back several pages. The pattern repeated. Small adjustments. Quiet changes. Just enough to go unnoticed. Until suspicion rose. Then blame shifted. To Ilara. The easiest target. The weakest in the pack. My pulse slowed. Cold. Controlled. This wasn't careless. It was deliberate. Footsteps echoed faintly outside the chamber. I remained still until they passed. Then I studied the most recent entry. 2 strips of smoked meat removed for training allocation. There had been no training. No allocation. Just accusation. Just punishment. Signed. Darius. My beta. My oldest ally. The one who urged discipline. The one who called me weak. The one who insisted the pack needed an example. This was never about food. It was about power. If I appeared soft, if the pack doubted me, he would be ready. I closed the record book slowly. The storm had ended outside. But another had begun inside these walls. The whispers in the courtyard. The private meetings. The careful words about corruption. Darius wasn't protecting the pack. He was positioning himself. And Alara. She had never been the thief. She had been the scapegoat. The sacrifice. I locked the chest carefully and stepped into the empty hallway. The castle felt colder than the storm had. Betrayal always does. Tomorrow, I would confront him. But tonight, I carried the weight of a truth that could split the pack in half. The rebellion wasn't loud. It wasn't open. It was quiet. Strategic. And it was led by the one wolf I trusted most. And now? I had proof. I didn't sleep. Not after reading the inventory records. By morning, the castle felt colder than the snow outside. The storm had passed, but something sharper remained in the air. I found Darius in the training yard. He was sparring with 2 warriors at once, moving with precision, with strength. Controlled. Confident. When he saw me, he dismissed them with a gesture. Alpha, he said, wiping sweat from his hands. You look troubled. We need to talk, I replied. He studied my face for a moment, then nodded. Privately. We moved into the empty strategy room. The door closed behind us with a dull sound. I didn't waste time. You framed her, I said. His expression didn't change. I don't know what you mean. I stepped closer and placed the folded inventory page on the table between us. Training allocation, I said. There was no training. Silence. Then he exhaled slowly. So you looked. You forged the records. I corrected them, he replied calmly. My jaw tightened. You stole food. For the warriors, he snapped. For the ones who actually fight. And blamed an Omega. He didn't deny it this time. You chose her over us, he said coldly. The words hit harder than I expected. I chose truth. You chose weakness, he shot back. You knelt in front of the entire pack for her. She would have died. And? His voice rose for the first time. She is an Omega. They are meant to endure. Or they fall. That is nature. That is cruelty. That is survival, he shouted. The silence after his words felt heavy. You've changed, he said more quietly. You used to understand. I still understand, I replied. But I won't let fear rule us. He laughed once, without humor. Fear built this pack. Your strength built this pack. My strength, I said slowly, or my cruelty? His eyes hardened. They are the same. I shook my head. No. They're not. He stepped closer. Omegas are weak. They drain resources. They create softness. If the pack sees you protect one of them, they will question everything. They already are. Exactly. Now I understood. This was never about food. It was about control. You wanted me to appear weak, I said. You made yourself weak, he replied. I only revealed it. And if I hadn't found the records? He didn't answer. That was answer enough. You were preparing, I said quietly. If the pack turned against me, you would step forward. He didn't deny that either. I was protecting our future, he said. No, I replied. You were protecting your power. His face darkened. You are blinded. By what? By her. I almost laughed. She's barely able to stand, I said. You see threat in a starving girl. I see influence, he snapped. The moment you show mercy, the moment you kneel, you change the order. And what is wrong with that? He stared at me as if I had become someone else entirely. You created this system, he said slowly. You taught us that weakness must be punished. His words struck deep. Because he was right. I had built this. I had taught the pack that fear was strength. I had allowed suspicion to become proof. I had sent her into the storm. You're not wrong, I admitted quietly. For the first time, Darius looked uncertain. I believed in what you built, he said. And now you're tearing it down. No, I said. I'm correcting it. Before he could respond, the door creaked slightly. I turned. The hallway beyond was empty. But something felt off. Footsteps. Light ones. I stepped outside. The corridor was quiet. Too quiet. Then I saw it. A faint trail of wet footprints leading toward the back stairs. Bare feet. My heart dropped. Ilara. I followed the trail quickly. The footprints led toward the side exit near the lower courtyard. The door was slightly open. Cold air rushed inside. I pushed it wider. Snow crunched beneath my boots as I stepped outside. The sky was gray again. The air sharp. And ahead of me, a small figure moving toward the outer path. Ilara. I called. She froze. Then she walked faster. I caught up within seconds and grabbed her wrist gently. Stop. She didn't look at me. I'll leave, she said quickly. It's better. Better for who? For the pack. Her voice shook. I heard you. I'm causing division. You're not. You're fighting because of me. No, I said firmly. I'm fighting because of him. She pulled her wrist free but didn't run. I don't want anyone hurt because of me, she whispered. If I leave, it ends. It doesn't end, I replied. It proves him right. She finally looked at me. Her eyes were clearer now. Stronger. You don't have to protect me, she said. I know. Then why are you? The question hung between us. Why am I? Guilt? Responsibility? Or something deeper? Because I was wrong, I said. And I won't be wrong again. She studied my face carefully, as if searching for a lie. I didn't steal, she said softly. I know, I replied. The wind picked up slightly, blowing snow across the ground. This was the second time I had chased her into the cold. But this time, I wasn't sending her away. You belong to this pack, I said. I'm just an omega. You're more than that. She swallowed hard. And if they don't accept that? Then they answer to me. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Finally, she nodded once. Small. But certain. I stepped beside her instead of in front. Come back, I said quietly. And this time? She did. The courtyard was full before sunrise. Word spreads fast in a pack like ours. Especially when the alpha calls a public assembly. Snow covered the ground in a thin white layer, untouched and quiet. Warriors stood in formation. Elders gathered near the front. Whispers moved through the crowd like smoke. Darius stood to my right, as he always had. But today, there was distance between us. Ilara stood near the healer, wrapped in a thicker cloak now. She looked small against the crowd, but she did not hide. I stepped forward. The murmurs faded. You all know why we are here, I said. No one answered. They were watching my face. Watching my strength. Watching for weakness. There has been theft within this pack, I continued. Food missing. Records altered. Murmurs began again. Ilara was accused, I said. Punished. Cast into the storm. Some wolves lowered their eyes. I turned slightly toward her. She did not steal. Gasps echoed across the courtyard. Darius did not move. The inventory records were forged, I said clearly. The missing food was redirected. Silence fell heavier than snow. I stepped down from the platform. And in front of the entire pack. I knelt. This time not from panic. Not from fear. By choice. The sound that followed was not loud. But it was sharp. Shock. Disbelief. An alpha king does not kneel. Ilara, I said, my voice steady, you were wrongfully accused. You were punished for a crime you did not commit. For that, I take responsibility. The wind moved softly across the courtyard. She looked at me with wide eyes. I continued, you are innocent. I rose slowly. Then I turned. Darius. He stepped forward calmly. You altered the records, I said. You allowed suspicion to fall on the weakest among us. The crowd shifted uneasily. You speak boldly, he replied evenly. Did you forge the records? I asked. His silence was enough. I did what was necessary, he said finally. For the strength of this pack. You stole from your own people. I protected the warriors who fight for us, he shot back. You framed an innocent Omega. I exposed weakness, he countered. You exposed yourself. The crowd murmured louder now. I faced them. Darius has broken trust, I said. Effective immediately, he is stripped of his title as Beta. The courtyard erupted. Some gasped. Some protested. Some watched silently. Darius did not look surprised. Instead, he stepped forward slowly, his expression cold and controlled. You think this makes you stronger? He asked. I think it makes us just, I replied. You think kneeling makes you noble? He continued. It makes you fragile. Strength is not cruelty, I said. It is when survival demands it. He stepped closer, lowering his voice but making sure the pack could still hear. You are no longer the alpha I followed. And you are no longer the beta I trusted. The air felt sharp. Then Darius did what I knew he would. I challenge you. The words echoed across the courtyard. A challenge for alpha position. Tradition is clear. When a beta challenges the alpha publicly, combat decides leadership. No refusal. No delay. Gasps rippled through the pack again. You are making a mistake, Elder Rowan said urgently. Darius ignored him. You have grown soft, he said to me. The pack deserves strength. I felt calm. Calmer than I had expected. This fight isn't about strength, I replied. It's about control. Control is strength. No, I said quietly. Control is fear. Ilara stepped forward suddenly. No, she said. Her voice was not loud. But it cut through the noise. All eyes turned to her. I don't want blood because of me, she said, looking at me. This is my fault. It is not, I said firmly. You're fighting because of me, she insisted. Darius smirked slightly. See? Even she understands. I turned to her fully. This isn't about you, I said. Her eyes searched mine. Then why does it feel like it is, she whispered. Because I changed. Because I chose differently. Because I refused to let her die. But I did not say those words. Instead, I said, this fight was coming long before you. She shook her head. I don't want anyone to die. I stepped closer to her. No one will die. Darius laughed once. Tradition does not promise mercy. Tradition also demands honor, I replied, looking directly at him. The warriors moved to clear space in the courtyard. The circle formed quickly. Snow crunched beneath their boots. I removed my cloak slowly and handed it to a guard. Darius did the same. We stepped into the center. He looked at me with something I hadn't seen before. Not loyalty. Not respect. Ambition. You built this pack on fear, he said quietly. Now you want to tear it down because of one Omega. I'm not tearing it down, I said. I'm rebuilding it. With mercy? With balance. He shook his head. You've changed. Yes, I said. And for the first time. I was not ashamed of it. The wind moved across the courtyard again. Ilara stood at the edge of the circle, pale but steady. I don't want blood because of me, she repeated softly. I looked at her one last time. This fight, I said quietly, is no longer about you. It was about the kind of alpha I would be. The kind of leader I would become. The kind of strength I chose to embody. Darius raised his stance. So be it. I raised mine. The pack held its breath. And as we circled each other in the snow, I understood something clearly. I was not fighting to keep power. I was fighting to redefine it. The circle in the snow felt smaller than it was. Warriors stood shoulder to shoulder around us. Elders watched with tense faces. The air was sharp and cold, but I barely felt it. Darius stood across from me, fists raised, eyes burning. He had always been strong. He had always been fast. But today, there was something else in him. Rage. You built this pack with me, he said quietly. Don't forget that. I haven't, I replied. Then don't throw it away. The signal was given. We moved at the same time. His first strike came fast, aimed at my jaw. I blocked, but the force pushed me back a step. Snow shifted beneath my boots. He didn't pause. Another blow. Another. He fought like a wolf cornered. No patience. No restraint. Only anger. I countered with a strike to his ribs. He grunted but didn't slow. The circle remained silent except for the sound of impact and heavy breathing. He lunged again, and this time his fist connected with my shoulder, sending pain through my arm. You were strong before her, he shouted. The words echoed. He swung again. I dodged. You ruled without hesitation, he continued. Without doubt. He drove forward, forcing me backward through the snow. You commanded fear. His fist caught my cheek. I tasted blood. And now, he snarled. You kneel for an omega. I steadied myself. No, I said, breathing hard. I knelt for justice. He attacked again, harder. You've grown soft. I blocked, twisted, and drove my elbow into his chest. No, I answered firmly. I've grown aware. He stumbled back but recovered quickly. You were strong before her, he shouted again. The crowd shifted uneasily. I wiped blood from my lip. No, I said. He charged. I stepped forward instead of back. I was empty. The words came from somewhere deeper than pride. Empty of compassion. Empty of balance. Empty of understanding. He swung wildly, and this time I caught his wrist, twisted, and drove him to one knee in the snow. He growled and shoved me off, rising again. You would choose weakness over power? I choose control over fear. He attacked with everything he had left. His strikes were no longer clean. They were fueled by fury. And fury blinds. I waited. Watched. And when he overextended, I moved. One step inside his guard. One solid strike to his ribs. A sweep of his legs. He fell hard into the snow. Before he could recover, I pinned him down. My forearm pressed against his throat. My knee held his arm in place. He struggled, but his strength was fading. The circle was silent. All they had to do was hear the final words. I yield, he could say. Or I could end it. Tradition was clear. The defeated challenger is executed. It was the law I had enforced myself. Darius stopped struggling. His breathing was heavy. You've doomed this pack, he said hoarsely. I looked down at him. My oldest ally. The wolf who stood beside me for years. The one who believed fear was strength. He waited for the final strike. The final command. The final proof that I was still the alpha he knew. The crowd waited too. I felt their expectation pressing in on me. If I killed him, they would see strength. They would see dominance. They would see the old Kale. My grip tightened slightly. Then I released him. Gasps broke across the courtyard. I stood and stepped back. It is over, I said. Darius stared at me from the ground. You hesitate, he said bitterly. No, I replied calmly. I choose. I turned to face the pack. Darius challenged for leadership and lost, I said clearly. Tradition allows execution. The silence deepened. But tradition also allows mercy. Shock rippled through the circle. Mercy, someone whispered. Yes, I said firmly. Darius is stripped of rank and exiled beyond our borders. He will not return. Darius pushed himself to his knees, disbelief in his eyes. You spare me? He asked. I will not kill a wolf who fought for this pack, I said. But you will no longer shape it. He rose slowly. This weakness will destroy you, he said quietly. No, I answered. It will define us. Two warriors stepped forward. I held up my hand. No chains, I ordered. He walks out with what honor remains. More whispers. Not angry this time. Confused. Uncertain. Darius looked at me one last time. You've changed, he said. Yes, I replied. He held my gaze for a long moment. Then he turned and walked toward the gates. The crowd parted for him. The gates opened. Cold wind rushed in once more. And then he was gone. The gates closed behind him. The courtyard remained silent. Every eye was on me. Not fearful. Not fully trusting. But thinking. I could see it. The shift. I stepped forward into the center of the circle. Strength is not the absence of mercy, I said. It is the control of it. No one interrupted. For too long, we believed fear was the only path to survival, I continued. But fear divides. Fear weakens trust. I looked toward Alara. She stood at the edge of the circle, pale but steady. And injustice weakens us more than hunger ever could. The wind moved softly through the courtyard. We are not wolves who devour our weakest, I said. We are a pack. And a pack survives together. The silence felt different now. Not tense. Not hostile. Reflective. Elder Rowan stepped forward slowly. The Alpha has spoken, he said. One by one, warriors lowered their heads. Not in fear. In acknowledgement. I felt something shift inside me. Not pride. Not relief. Balance. I caught Alara's gaze. There was no fear in her eyes now. Only quiet strength. And for the first time, the pack began to see that mercy was not weakness. It was power restrained. And that restraint was stronger than any blow I had thrown. The pack did not change overnight. But something had shifted. The whispers were quieter now. The stares less sharp. Warriors still trained, elders still argued, life still moved forward, but the tension felt different. Not brittle. Uncertain. Alara did not return to the kitchens. Not immediately. Mira insisted she regain her strength first. I did not argue. The first time I saw her outside the healer's room, she was standing alone near the edge of the courtyard, watching the warriors train. Her posture was straighter now. Still thin. Still quiet. But no longer shrinking. Some wolves glanced at her and then looked away quickly. Not with cruelty. With confusion. I walked toward her slowly. She noticed. But she didn't step back. That alone felt like progress. You shouldn't be standing too long, I said. I've stood through worse, she replied. There was no fear in her voice. Only truth. I studied her for a moment. You're healing. So is the pack, she said quietly. The words surprised me. You think so? She nodded once. They don't look at me the same. How do they look at you? Like they're not sure what I am anymore. I almost smiled. And what are you? She looked toward the forest beyond the walls. Not what they thought. Silence settled between us, but it wasn't heavy. It felt honest. After a moment, she said, You want to know about me? It wasn't a question. Yes, I admitted. She took a slow breath. My pack wasn't like this one, she said. It was smaller. We didn't have walls. Her voice remained steady, but her fingers tightened slightly at her sides. We were attacked when I was 12, she continued. Rogues. They burned what they couldn't take. I didn't interrupt. I hid, she said simply. In the snow. The word snow carried weight now. When it was over, there was no one left. Her gaze remained fixed ahead, not on me. I waited for days. Thought someone would come back. No one did. So I learned to survive, she said. Alone. I felt something tighten in my chest. Through winters? I asked quietly. She nodded. Food from traps. Shelter from caves. I learned not to expect help. Her eyes finally met mine. I learned not to trust it. The words were clear. Sharp. You survived alone, I said. Yes. That isn't weakness. No, she agreed. It isn't. I understood then. She wasn't fragile. She was forged. Hunger had not broken her. Isolation had not broken her. The pack's cruelty had not broken her. I had almost been the thing that did. You left me there, she said suddenly. The words weren't angry. They were factual. I didn't look away. I know, I said. The wind moved gently across the courtyard. I thought I would die, she continued. And I didn't fight it. My chest tightened. Why? I asked. Because I was tired, she replied. Tired of proving I deserved to stay. The honesty hurt more than accusation. I was wrong, I said quietly. She didn't answer. I told myself I was protecting the pack, I continued. I told myself strength meant punishment. She studied my face carefully. But you knew I didn't steal. The question was soft. Yes, I admitted. Her eyes flickered. Then why didn't you stop it? Because fear was easier. Because control felt safer. Because I built a system where doubt became guilt. I was afraid, I said. She looked surprised. Afraid, she repeated. Afraid that if I hesitated, the pack would question me. And they did anyway. Yes. The corner of her mouth moved slightly. Not quite a smile. Just understanding. I created a system where wolves like you carried the blame, I said. That is my fault. The word fault tasted unfamiliar. I had never used it for myself. I'm not asking for forgiveness, I added. I don't deserve it. She watched me carefully. I don't want you to kneel, she said. I'm not kneeling. I want you to change. I nodded slowly. I am. She held my gaze for a long moment. I don't need protection, she said. I need fairness. You have it, I replied. And the others, she asked. That question lingered. It wasn't just about her. It was about every Omega. Every wolf who carried blame because it was convenient. They will, I said firmly. She studied me as if weighing the truth of my words. You apologized, she said quietly. Yes. Not as Alpha. No. As a man. The word felt heavy. But right. I'm sorry, I said clearly. Not for politics. Not for appearance. For her. For that night. For the snow. For the silence. Her eyes softened slightly. I don't hate you, she said. Relief moved through me unexpectedly. But I won't forget, she added. You shouldn't, I replied. The sun began to break through the clouds, light catching the snow across the courtyard. For the first time in days, the air didn't feel suffocating. She stepped forward, closer than before. I survived alone, she said. But I don't want to anymore. The words were quiet. Not dependent. Not desperate. Chosen. You won't have to, I said. And this time? It wasn't a promise made from power. It was one made from understanding. As she walked back toward the healer's wing, I watched her carefully. Not as the weakest in the pack. Not as an omega. But as the strongest wolf in the courtyard. And I realized something clearly. She had survived winters alone. I had ruled surrounded by wolves. And still been colder. But now, for the first time, the ice inside me was beginning to thaw. The warning came at dusk. A scout burst through the gates, breathless, snow clinging to his cloak. Rogues, he said. 15. Maybe more. My pulse didn't race. It steadied. Who leads them? I asked. The scout hesitated. Darius. A quiet moved through the courtyard. Not fear. Recognition. So this was how he chose to return. Not alone. Not humbled. But with force. I stepped onto the platform above the courtyard and looked down at my pack. They were already gathering. Warriors moving into formation. Elders guiding the younger wolves inside. No shouting. No chaos. Just movement. Order. But not from fear. From trust. Close the gates, I ordered. Archers to the walls. Defenders at the east and west corners. No one hesitated. They moved because they believed. That difference mattered. I saw Alara near the storage entrance, speaking quickly with Mira and 2 younger Omegas. She wasn't hiding. She was organizing. Move the dried meat to the inner cellar, she was saying. Seal the grain bins. Keep water near the healers. One of the younger wolves looked frightened. What if they break through? Then we hold the inner doors, she replied calmly. No one runs. Her voice was steady. Clear. Not weak. When she noticed me watching, she didn't lower her gaze. She nodded once. Ready. The horns sounded from the wall. They had arrived. Through the falling snow, I saw them. Dark shapes moving toward the gates. Darius at the front. His posture was confident. Certain. He believed they would follow him. That the pack would divide. That fear would resurface. The rogues began their attack quickly. Heavy blows against the gates. Arrows from the walls met them. The clash of steel echoed through the air. I stepped into the courtyard and waited. If the gates fell, we would meet them inside. But the gates held. The warriors held. No one broke rank. No one ran. And when a group of rogues tried to scale the wall, they were met with force. Disciplined. Controlled. United. The gates cracked but did not shatter. After several failed pushes, Darius signaled retreat toward the side wall. He thought he could break us from the edge. I moved with a group of warriors to intercept. Snow sprayed beneath our boots as we circled. This time, he didn't find fear in our eyes. He found resistance. One of the rogues lunged at me. I blocked and struck cleanly, sending him down. Another fell to one of our younger warriors. The formation held. Tight. Unbroken. I caught sight of Alara near the inner corridor. She was guiding children and elders into secure rooms. When a rogue slipped past the wall and rushed toward the courtyard, she didn't freeze. She grabbed a fallen spear and struck low, unbalancing him long enough for a warrior to finish the fight. She didn't look proud. She looked focused. Strong. This was not the girl left in the snow. This was someone forged by it. Within minutes, the rogues realized the truth. They were not breaking us. They were walking into a wall of unity. Darius saw it too. I watched it register in his eyes. Confusion. Then disbelief. The wolves he expected to hesitate didn't. The warriors he thought would question me didn't. They fought not because they feared punishment, but because they believed in the pack. And in me. One by one, the rogues fell or fled. Darius was left standing near the broken snowbank by the wall. Surrounded. I stepped forward slowly. "Stand down," I said. He looked around him. No wolves stepping forward to join him. No murmurs of support. Only steady gazes. "You turned them," he said. "I didn't," I replied. "You did." He laughed once, bitter. "They followed strength. They follow balance." He lunged suddenly, aiming for one final strike. I was ready. I blocked, twisted his arm, and drove him to his knees in the snow. The same position as before. But this time, he wasn't challenging. He was defeated. The warriors surrounded us. Silent. Waiting. Darius looked around once more. Searching. For loyalty. For doubt. For division. He found none. "You were supposed to fall," he muttered. "No," I said quietly. "You were." His shoulders slumped slightly. Not from pain. From realization. The pack no longer followed fear. And without fear, he had nothing. "Take him," I ordered. 2 warriors stepped forward and restrained him. He didn't resist this time. As he was pulled to his feet, he looked at me one last time. "You've changed them," he said. "No," I replied. "We changed." He was led away. The rogues were gone. The gates still stood. And the pack remained whole. As the courtyard slowly cleared, I saw Alara step forward again. Snow clung to her cloak, but she stood steady. "You held them together," I said quietly. "We held together," she corrected. I nodded. Darius's downfall had not come from my revenge. It had not come from execution. It had come from his own pride. He believed fear was loyalty. He believed power meant control. He believed I would remain the alpha who ruled by silence and punishment. But the pack had chosen differently. Not through fear. Through trust. And as I looked at the wolves around me, calm, united, standing firm in the aftermath, I realized something simple. Karma had not been loud. It had not been dramatic. It had simply revealed the truth. And the truth was stronger than fear ever was. Peace does not arrive loudly. It returns slowly. Like sunlight after a long winter. The gates were repaired within days. The broken wood replaced. The watch doubled, not out of fear, but caution. The rogues did not return. And Darius did not either. The pack moved carefully at first, as if waiting for another storm. But none came. Instead, something quieter settled over us. Change. Council meetings no longer revolved around punishment. We rewrote our laws. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Omegas were given defined roles, not undefined blame. Work assignments were recorded openly. Inventory logs required 2 signatures, not 1. Accusations demanded proof. Fairness became structure, not sentiment. The first time an Omega spoke during a council discussion without being silenced, the room felt different. Stronger. Not softer. Stronger. I watched the pack begin to stand differently. Not with fear. With stability. And at the center of that shift was Alara. She did not demand attention. She earned it. She worked alongside Mira to improve supply storage and ration tracking. She organized younger wolves into winter preparation teams. She corrected mistakes calmly instead of shrinking from them. And when others questioned her, she did not lower her eyes. She held their gaze. Steady. The first time a warrior apologized to her openly for past cruelty, I saw something in the courtyard I had not seen before. Respect. Not because I ordered it. Because she commanded it. One evening, as the snow began to melt along the outer walls, I found her standing where I once watched her struggle alone. Near the kitchens. The same place she had dropped that bucket. The same place I had turned away. You're thinking, she said without looking at me. Yes. About the past? About the future. She turned slightly. And which worries you more? The future used to, I admitted. Now the past does. She studied me quietly. You don't have to carry it alone, she said. The words struck me. Not because they were dramatic, but because they were offered. I stepped closer. The pack is rebuilding, I said. Stronger than before. You are too, she replied. I don't know about that. You kneel less from guilt now. I let out a small breath. She was right. The first time I knelt, it was fear. The second time, responsibility. But something else had grown since then. Something steadier. I looked at her. Truly looked. Not as an Omega. Not as someone I had wronged. But as someone who had endured. You changed this pack, I said. No, she answered. You did. I only corrected what I broke. And that takes strength. Silence settled between us, warm instead of tense. I stepped back slightly. Then, slowly, I lowered myself to one knee. Not rushed. Not forced. Chosen. Her breath caught softly. There were no gasps this time. No shock. Only stillness. I knelt because I saw your pain, I told her. The wind moved gently through the courtyard. And now, she asked quietly. I looked up at her. Clear. Certain. Now I kneel because I see your strength. Her eyes softened, not with pity. With understanding. You don't have to kneel to respect me, she said. I know. Then why do it? Because I want the pack to see what I see. She glanced around the courtyard. Several wolves had paused in their work. Watching. Not with judgment. With reflection. I rose slowly. I don't kneel to lower myself, I said. I kneel to show that strength bows to truth. Her lips curved slightly. And what do you see now? She asked. I see someone who survived alone when she shouldn't have had to, I said. Someone who endured winters without a wall. Someone who stood in front of warriors and did not break. Her gaze held mine steadily. I see someone who deserves more than survival. The air felt lighter. Warmer. And what is that? She asked softly. Belonging, I replied. The word felt right. Not possession. Not dominance. Belonging. She stepped closer. And you, she asked. What do you deserve? The question surprised me. I had never asked it. I don't know, I admitted. Yes, you do. I held her gaze. I deserve to lead without fear, I said slowly. And to care without shame. She nodded once. Then do that. It wasn't romantic in the way stories describe. There were no dramatic declarations. No fireworks. Just two wolves standing in melting snow. Equal. The pack resumed movement around us. But the air had shifted again. Not from conflict. From closure. Elder Rowan passed nearby and paused briefly. The king who knelt, he said quietly. Not as insult. As recognition. I looked toward the walls that once held fear inside them. Now they held something different. Trust. I turned back to Alara. I will not promise perfection, I said. I don't want perfection, she replied. I will promise effort. That's enough. For a long moment, we simply stood there. Not Alpha and Omega. Not ruler and accused. Just two wolves who had survived the same winter in different ways. And found each other in the thaw. The pack no longer trembled beneath my rule. They stood beside it. And I no longer ruled through silence. I led through choice. The king who once believed fear was strength. Learned that strength was restraint. That power was mercy. That kneeling was not surrender. It was acknowledgement. And as the snow melted fully from the courtyard, so did the last of the ice inside me. I had once been strong and empty. Now, I was strong and whole.